Thank you very much, Beck, and welcome everybody. It's a big topic that we're covering today in regards to solar and batteries. And my objectives today was really just to treat this like I would treat any customer that I'm dealing with. I have been in the industry for 8 years, and solar and batteries have been my passion for that time. And really, I wanted to make sure that I'm giving the information that hopefully is going to help you make an informed decision when it comes to solar or batteries for your home. The agenda today is going to be cover the key topics. First of all, understanding your electricity usage, planning for your solar system, and understanding batteries. As Beck mentioned, if you do have questions, please jot them down, and at the end, we'll hopefully be able to have time to run through them all. When it comes to solar and batteries, knowledge is power. So my objective today is to make sure that when you understand your electricity usage, when you understand the right plan, then you can make an informed decision of whether solar and batteries are right for you, and just give you that confidence in making those decisions. Number one for me, and where I come across a lot in the industry, is people don't really understand their usage or know how to size a solar or battery for their home. There's two important steps towards this. The first is your electricity bill, and your bill tells you how much electricity you use and goes through your rates. Your kilowatt hours is on your bill, your usage charges, your solar exports if you already have solar, and your daily supply charges. For me, your electricity bill is only the first step as your starting point. What I'd really like people to do is an electricity bill gives you a snapshot. But when it comes to sizing solar and batteries, it's not going to give you the full picture. The full picture is really going to be through PowerCore's Manage My Energy. If you're not familiar with this site, it's a free site that you can register with. All you need is a copy of your electricity bill. You log on to PowerCore, you'll see that we've got links here that you can obtain afterwards, or just Google search PowerCore My Energy. The reason I recommend this for everybody to understand their usage is because when you read your electricity bill, it's going to give you what you're paying, and it's also going to give you your usage, but it's not going to break it down for you. So an example I give for that, if anyone's got an electricity bill beside them or handy, you may have a look at your electricity usage, and it may say, for example, your average daily usage is 16 kilowatt hours. What that's not going to tell you is what you use in summer, what you use in winter, but also how you break that down to solar production hours and outside of solar production hours. In this example, in PowerCore's Manage My Energy, you're going to see your usage. Now, it does break it down by year. You can break it down by season. You can break it down by month, and then you can break it down by week and even by day. The little example I've got here is it goes from midnight to midnight. And this is a perfect example. If you're looking at solar, you're trying to cover your usage during solar production hours. Now, your solar production hours will change throughout the seasons, summer to winter, but let's just say we're wanting to cover from around 9 a.m. to around 6 p.m. So if you were using on average 16 kilowatt hours a day, or this one here, energy used is 18.7, that's over a 24-hour period. So we want to break down what you're using during your solar production hours to size your solar system correctly. This example here is showing that there's not a lot of solar, not a lot of electricity usage during the day, but they're a heavy user later in the day. So that's going to tell me that we need to discuss how they're going to get the best use out of their solar, or this customer's better suited to a battery if that's where they're wanting to go because their usage is outside of their solar production hours or their peak usage. So understanding your patterns and tracking when you're using your electricity, and also whether you can change any of those habits. Some people just get used to turning things on at night or putting the dishwasher on when they go to bed, where you could actually turn it on during the day if you're home, or if you're at work, turn it on before you head out in the morning, after breakfast and before you head out. So I'm going to talk about this site a lot because to me, it's the number one useful tool that I have used for many, many years and is very easy for any customer to understand themselves. And when you're dealing with any provider in the solar and battery industry, you know what to discuss, you know what they're looking at, and you can ask them to break it down based on your usage as well. A top tip that I always like to give is when you have a look at your electricity bill, about 80% of customers I talk to actually admit that they don't look at their electricity bill. The bill comes in, they look at how much they've got to pay, and they just pay it. So my top tip is to understand your bill, understand your usage, understand your charges, and believe it or not, understand whether you could save more money. The one I've taken a screenshot of here is an exact example of a client I had just a few weeks ago. Obviously, I've taken the personal details out. But when I was talking to this customer, I'm going to use the name Bob. I said, Bob, you could save $478 a year just by changing to a Smart Saver plan with AGL. That customer thought I was very intelligent, and I had to admit to them, I'm not that smart. It's written on the front page of your bill. Have a look on the front page of your bill. That customer nearly fell over. He said, I never read my bill. And I said, legally, your electricity provider must provide you with 3 times a year. They must tell you whether you can save more money. As I said, most people don't read it and don't see that. And that's just with that electricity provider. So you could save more money going with another electricity provider. So it's really important to shop around. One of the number one things I get asked about rates is how do I know whether I'm on a good rate? This is really going to come down to your usage and when you use the most power. But if anyone's got pen and paper there, I'm going to give you a couple of figures. It's not actually in the presentation, but a couple of figures that I will tell you what the average is. I probably read more electricity bills than anybody. And there's vast differences. Your bill will have 3 different rates. It'll have a daily supply charge. That daily supply charge you pay regardless. If you've got solar and batteries that would cover your usage, you're still going to pay a daily supply charge. Now that can range from an average of $1 up to $1.60 a day. So most people are paying anywhere between about $450 and $600 a year, even if they're not drawing electricity from the grid. So you can see by obtaining a cheaper daily supply charge can really benefit you. Then you'll either have what's called an all-day rate, which means you just get charged for the electricity you draw no matter what time of the day. Again, that will vary a lot, and you'll see rates anywhere between roughly 24 cents up to about 54 cents. So a big variance again. Then you'll have other rates that have a peak and off-peak rate. Your peak rate is generally between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., and your off-peak rate is all other times, 7 days of the week. Your off-peak rate will change roughly anywhere between 18 cents and 36 cents. And your peak rate will generally be anywhere between, I'm going to say 32 cents up to about 60 cents. So again, there's a big variance. I advise people to understand your usage. When we went through and we had a look at this usage pattern here, if someone's using most of their electricity during that peak demand charge, then it's important to look where you can get an all-day rate or make sure you're getting a lower peak demand charge because that's when you're using most of your electricity. Again, Power Core Manage My Energy is going to show you when you use your most electricity, so then you can hunt for the best electricity rate suited to your needs. When we've got solar, then you want to size your solar system to cover your daytime usage. But in winter, your solar production is going to finish by around 4 or 5 o'clock on most days. So your peak demand charge going up until 9 p.m., your solar's not going to cover that. So just make sure you're chasing those rates there or reducing your daily supply charge. What to think about when we're looking at getting solar. So when it comes down to solar, number one is, when do you use your electricity? Number two, how much electricity do you actually use? Number three, future proofing. And number four, looking at your roof space. So to break this down a little bit more, what we're looking at is, when do you use your electricity? We've just covered that. We've covered what times of the day you use your electricity. Are you working from home? Are you someone that leaves home at 8 o'clock in the morning, is not back till 6 o'clock at night? Have you got kids home from school? And understanding your patterns and whether you can change those patterns is really important for sizing your system. Your average daily kilowatt usage, your seasonal changes, as what we've just run through, is understanding your usage patterns. And then also think about future needs. Are you going to have an electric vehicle, or do you already have one? Are you thinking of installing a battery? A big one that we have now is people that are eliminating gas from their property and changing to more electric. So when you're reviewing your usage, if I'm looking at somebody's usage through PowerCore's Manage My Energy, and I say, okay, so June, your average usage was 30 kilowatt hours a day, but then in August, it went up to 88 kilowatt hours a day. What was the reason behind that? And then the customer might say to me, I had electric heating installed late July. Before that, I was using gas. So then we know what their future needs are going to be, and we're planning around that. Someone else might come to me and say, Leah, we're changing to all electric. I've currently got gas hot water. I've got a gas cooking, and I've got ducted gas heating. I'm going to be changing to split systems. I'm going to put a heat pump in, and we're going to put an induction cooktop in. And the supplier that you're dealing with will be able to break down what you should be future proofing for those types of appliances. So understand what future needs you have to plan ahead as well. Then it's going to come down to your roof size. And this comes down to many things of what's suitable for solar on your roof. The direction of the roof we'll run through a bit more in the next slide or two. Whether there's shade on your roof or any roof obstructions. How much roof space you have. I have properties that will only fit, for example, a 4 kilowatt solar system, but their usage actually warrants a 10 kilowatt solar system. So it's what size can fit on the roof. A 4 kilowatt system's better than not having one at all, but try and maximize what you can in your roof space with solar. Your roof conditions will change pricing and also change whether it's suitable. The pitch of your roof, your standard pitch of a roof, is about 22 degrees. When you're going above that, you may have additional costs for high pitch roof. And then also you'll have tile, tin, terracotta that all comes into different installation costs. So just make sure you're discussing that with your installer of choice, or when you're obtaining different quotes, making sure that they've covered all of those things within your proposal as well. And remember that one size doesn't fit all. I'll quite often have a customer contact me and say, well, my daughter installed a 6.6 kilowatt solar system. That's all I need. When I actually analyze their bill for them and register with PowerCore Manage My Energy, we'll run through with them and say, actually, you need around an 8 to 10 kilowatt solar system based on what we're looking at. And we run through the differences and why that's important. So make sure you're understanding those things as well. And up there. Now, a simple slide of how solar works. I don't know how much information people need, but this is just going to give you the basics of how solar actually works. So solar panels installed on your roof will capture the sunlight. You'll have an inverter, and we'll run through the different types of inverters and panels within this presentation. And the panels actually convert the electricity into DC current or direct current. And then your inverter converts direct current into AC current or alternative current, because that's the electricity you use within your house. So then you're using solar power. If you've got enough solar power to power your home, then you're not going to pay for electricity. But there will be times where you don't have enough solar power, so then you'll draw from the grid. Any excess solar will go back to the grid. And you can obtain solar feed-in credits. Times have changed, and a lot of people talk about solar's not worth it anymore. I don't get anything when I export back to the grid. Please note that solar is all about what you self-consume. Solar is 100% so beneficial because if you can cover your daytime usage, you're still saving a lot of money. If you're not home during the day and you're chasing that higher feed-in tariff, or you don't use a lot of electricity during the day, then do your research and look for electricity providers that do offer a higher feed-in tariff. For example, there's companies out there, the average is only 1 cent feed-in tariff these days is the average, but there's companies that still offer 8, 11 and 14 cents for certain hours of the day and up to a certain kilowatt hours. Their charges are normally higher, so their daily supply charge is generally higher, but that could be more beneficial for you. Again, by using that Power Core Manage My Energy site, you can actually have a look at when you use electricity, and if I export back, is that going to be more beneficial and chase a better rate there? Or you may be looking at a battery. When you're looking at your solar panels on the roof and the best time they produce, it is going to come down to the direction of your panels as well. But now panels work in low light. It's changed over the years. You can have panels all west facing that are still producing by 8 o'clock in the morning. You're still going to have a maximum time. And if we think sun rises on the east and sets on the west, the middle of the day is when you're going to get the most solar production on a good sunny day. Generally, around 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. is your best solar production time. And this is generally what we want to see here. So when you're getting up in the morning, you're putting your kettle or your toaster on, having a shower, your production's going to be lower, but then you'll see it's just going to rise throughout the day. You want to use most of your appliances between these peak solar production times. And when you can, you want to space out your appliances. What I say to customers there, if you're home, doesn't matter whether you're home during the week or on a weekend, and if you got up, you put the dishwasher on, you put your washing machine on and you vacuumed the floors, you're likely going to be drawing from the grid because you're using more power at a specific time, so in a half-hour period. Where if you got up and you put the washing machine on, you waited till the washing machine was finished and then you put the dishwasher on or the clothes dryer on afterwards, then the likelihood of you drawing from the grid is going to be lower. And that's called load control, controlling how much you're drawing from the grid at any specific time. Oops, so go back one there. When it comes to roof direction, in Australia, I've just used Bendigo as an example, but in Victoria, as we know, the sun rises on the east and the sun sets on the west. Your south production is the lowest or least production. But as I mentioned, panels now work in low light. If someone had told me when I first started in the industry that we'd put panels on the south-facing roof, we probably would have laughed and said, that's ridiculous, it's not going to work. Now we see that even placing panels on the south side actually gives you good production, but your east, your north and your west are more favourable. If somebody doesn't have enough roof space or a different orientating roof, then you can still use the south facing roof. When a solar or battery supplier supplies a proposal to you, it's going to show you the production, and you can ask for different breakdown of different directions on your roof space as well. If this actual house was, let's say we've got to give it a 180-degree tilt, and let's just say the north and south is now spun, so your biggest roof space is east and west, then it used to be that you'd split the panels on both sides. Now panels work in low light. You can have all your panels on a west-facing or east-facing roof, but if you can put them on both, you're probably going to get a little bit of an increase in production there. The other things we need to consider when it comes down to your roof is shading and roof obstructions. So if we've got shading on a roof and you had panels placed along here, then shading will impact your production. There are panels that work better in shade, but it is best to avoid shade when you can. Again, depending on your budget and what you're looking at, discuss with your preferred suppliers what they offer and how that's going to impact shade. How you string panels will also be beneficial. So if I've got a roof line where I've got 3 rows of panels and only a small amount of shading, then I might just make sure that I've strung the panels in a way that the small amount of shade impact is not going to be detrimental. We just show how much shade is lost in production rather than looking at and upgrading panels for shade protection. But that's an individual choice that you will go through and understand what's going to be most beneficial from you. If we've got a roof obstruction here, which is showing an evaporative cooler that puts shade onto that roof line, just remember chimneys, stink pipes, evaporative coolers, anything like that, TV aerials that are going to put shading onto the panels can lower your actual production. TV aerials are a big one because if you've also got a TV aerial above panels, then the lovely little birds that like to go sit on them and can leave their droppings on them is going to mean that you've got more maintenance on your panels because you'll need to clean your panels more often. So key points to take away here. North-facing panels are going to give you the best overall production all year round. East and west can match your use, monitoring morning and afternoon. Make sure you're looking at any roof obstructions and any shading impact as well. Once again, the right size system is going to be what suits your roof line and your individual needs. System sizing. When it comes to system sizing, we need to have a look at, once again, going back to Power Cores Manage My Energy and having a look at your production throughout the year. I've provided 3 system sizes here just to give you an example. We've got in the green, I'm just going to round it up, a 6.6 kilowatt system, in the orange, a 10.3, and in the blue, a 15 kilowatt solar system. And this is for actual production in Bendigo. So if, for example, we look at January and we're looking at a 6.6 kilowatt solar system, that system's going to produce on average around 40 kilowatt hours a day. Remember, that's just your solar production hours. So somebody that may use 40 kilowatt hours a day over 24 hours, we look at what they're using during solar production hours. The downside of that is, let's just say this customer does use 40 kilowatt hours a day in summer, but they use 26 kilowatt hours a day in winter. We drop down to June and you'll see this system's only going to produce 13 kilowatt hours a day in June. Please note, I never size a solar or battery system based on winter production. In Victoria, we just don't get enough sunshine. We have shorter days, we have more rain days, and I've never been able to produce a solar system that will cover people's usage in winter. So you've got to see what your balance is. If we jumped right up to the 15 kilowatt solar system just to cover the winter usage or more of the winter usage, you'll see if they were only using 40 kilowatts in summer, that's going to increase to 91. So the return on investment wouldn't be as beneficial because they're not using as much and they're paying more for a larger system that they're not going to be able to use. So again, jumping back to Power Cores Manage My Energy, have a look at your usage over summer, have a look at your winter usage, and then I generally do 2 months outside of that. March is a really good month because you're generally not using heating and you're not using cooling, and November's around the same. This just gives you an all-year view without having to break down every single day. When you have a look at that usage, January this year is going to be a great example. The 7th, 8th and 9th of January were those hottest days of the year. We had a couple of days over 45 degrees, and most people will use their air conditioner. For 24 hours, they could have been running their air conditioner. So when you jump into Power Cores Manage My Energy and break that down, a lot of my clients were using maybe 60 kilowatt hours a day for those days, but on other days they were only using around 20. The reason I want to mention this, because it's important to know what you actually want to cover. Are you sizing a system for your average usage, or are you sizing a system for your peak usage? And that's things that you'll understand talking to a provider and going through that analysis with them. Okay, next we're going to move on to solar panels. I'm not going to run through a great deal about brands. I think I'm not somebody that sells on the difference of brands. There's a lot of brands out there. I think if you stay within this core range here, I've used Solar Quotes, and if you're not familiar with Solar Quotes, it's a great site to go on for comparisons, and every panel here is a reputable panel recommended by Solar Quotes and their independent search. But what you're really looking for in a panel, we'll go through in the next slide. Please note that the axis on this is pricing. So it's going from your average pricing to your premium pricing, but every panel on here is a reputable known brand. There are panels that would be the other side of this axis that are lower quality that they don't recommend. I will mention here two different looks of panels. You'll have what's called different types of panels in the range. So if I'm looking at REC, if I'm looking at Winnaco, if I'm looking at AOCO, they're going to be panels looking like this. Even once you get into your Longy, JA and TW, they'll have an all black panel. Some panels will have buzz bars on the front and some will have on the back, so you won't see all the grid lines. Other panels will just be a black frame and others will be an all black panel. And that comes down to the aesthetics of the panel. So if the look is more important, make sure you're looking for a panel that is a pure all black, not just black frame with the grid lines, but otherwise look at what's important to you in the panel for production. And this is what we'll go through here. How do you figure out the quality of a solar panel? There's so many on the market that the most important things you will look at is the efficiency rating. The average is 22 to 24%. Now, you may look at a panel and say, this panel's rated at 21% and this panel's rated at 23.2%. It's important to also understand the sizing of the panel, because a 440 watt panel to a 475 watt panel, the efficiency on a 475 is automatically going to be higher. A top tip that I give customers there is every proposal legally in Victoria must state what your yearly production is. So if you put, for example, a 6.6 kilowatt solar system on and you had two different quotes, one quote was with, I'm not going to mention brands, I'm going to say with one panel, another with another panel. One will say it's 10,400 per year. The next one might say it was 11,200 per year. So that's the total production for the whole year. That's the more important thing to look at, because that's going to give you a better picture for the different sizing in panels. So make sure you know what your panel's going to produce for the whole year. Your temperature performance, just note that panels don't work in extremely hot temperatures. So panels lose efficiency the hotter it is. So people think on a 46-degree day that my panels are going to be working the best. They will actually be working better on a 30-degree day than a 46-degree day. And that's more for safety reasons. Then you'll have your degradation of a panel, generally between 0.3 and 0.5% per year. And that means how much your panels will lose production in the first year. Now, please note that most panels are around the same, and most quality panels still produce around 88 to 92% of their original output over 25 years. Another one I like to mention here, I'll quite often have customers that come through wanting to replace panels that may only be 8, 10, 12 years old. Make sure you jump into PowerCore's Manage My Energy again. Look at what those panels are producing, because we don't want to be filling landfill with panels that are working perfectly fine. If you can keep those panels, even when you're adding batteries, you may add to the solar system. but a lot of the time the panels could be actually effective enough for you to use. Warranty is one of the other things that people will look for in panels. Again, I'm just going to give you the average. A product warranty is generally 25 years, and a performance warranty is generally 25 to 30 years. Of all those brands that we went through, you're going to find panels in between that. What I think is a lot more important is having a look for established manufacturers that have been in the industry for a longer period of time. That's going to give you a bit more security rather than a brand that's new to the market that you don't know whether they're going to be here in 5 years' time. Do they have an Australian support? As a retailer or as someone in the industry, if we ever get a warranty claim, you need to know that you can action that very quickly. So you need to jump on the phone and get someone on the other end and not be having to deal via text or emails and where you can't actually get an issue resolved quickly. If you need to check that yourself, a top tip is look for the panels that you are looking at and ring them yourself. Do you get someone on the end of the phone? Do search whether they have an Australian office and do your own research on the brand that you're considering for your own needs. Long-term warranties and backing's the most important thing. There's not many manufacturing faults or warranty claims on panels, believe it or not. They're pretty hardy. Hail damage is probably one to consider, and we had quite a few instances in Epsom that had a lot of hail damage. Once again, I won't mention brands, but there were certain brands that had a lot more insurance claims than other brands. So one thing I do encourage customers to look at is the hail damage rating, and that's important in there. Once again, a small key takeaway, the best solar panel isn't always the cheapest or the most expensive. Look for a balance of performance, warranty, and manufacturer support. In Bendigo, if you're in the Bendigo region, and you're dealing local, or even if you're in Castlemaine or you've got local suppliers there, ask where they actually buy their panels from, because if that manufacturer or that distributor that you deal with actually goes out of business, you can go back to the supplier of the panel itself. So in Bendigo, AWM, Lawrence and Hanson, some of the biggest ones. So see where they actually buy their panels from. Once again, legally, that has to be written within your quote. So where they actually buy their products from, so you can see where you can go to for backup and support, needs to be written within your proposal. All right, I'm just going to check how we're going on time and how quick I've got to be. All right, so the next is inverters. Once again, I've just used solar quotes, and they consider all these brands to be reputable and well supported within Australia. So rather than me tell you what my favourites are, here's some of the most common and reputable brands in Australia. There's different types of inverters, and you'll either have a string inverter, which is classified a grid-tied inverter. So that is predominantly what you have for a solar system. It's the most common, it's the most cost-effective and suitable for all homes. You will then have a hybrid inverter or a hybrid-ready inverter. Now, look, 2 years ago, these were very popular. I'm going to say they have dramatically dropped now. If you're installing solar without a battery, then most people just put a string inverter in. Although a hybrid inverter is classed as more battery ready, technology has been changing dramatically over the last couple of years, and people that put a hybrid or hybrid ready inverter in 2 years ago, the battery that they then decide to, or may have wanted to install 2 years later, may not be compatible with that inverter. So understand that and the difference. A common string inverter as an average price is only going to cost you around $1,000 if I'm going to give you a ballpark, where a hybrid inverter can be $2,000 to $3,000. So if you pay that up front and never install a battery, you've paid extra for something you don't need. The second point is if you pay that up front, but then decide to install a battery that's not compatible with it, you've got to replace it anyway. So just top tips to consider. If you're just doing solar only, consider whether you need a hybrid or hybrid ready inverter. whether you're happy to just replace it at the time if you decide to put a battery in. There are now also batteries on the market that you can keep that grid tied, that string inverter there, and the batteries have a hybrid inverter in the battery stack, and the string inverter can be AC coupled into the battery system itself. The other one is microinverters, and microinverters, unlike these inverters that go onto the wall, your panels will have an individual microinverter on each individual panel. So one inverter per panel. Generally used for difficult roof spaces where you can't get enough panels in a string for a string inverter, or for properties with high intensity shade, then microinverters can be considered. Just quickly, when it comes down to monitoring and apps for your solar system, I'm not going to go through this in big detail because every system will have an app. It's whether you have an app that has advanced monitoring and consumption monitoring or just standard monitoring. My top tip, always get the advanced monitoring if you can, because it's a great way to monitor your system and make sure you can see what it's doing at any given time. Some systems will come with it standard. Others will cost you anywhere between $360 and $520 extra as an estimate and ballpark figure. But it's going to break down for you what your solar system's producing, what you're using in the house, and what you're exporting to the grid. Very, very big advantage. If you're home during the day and you open that app up and you go, I'm currently producing 3 kilowatt hours, I'm not going to turn all my appliances on because I'm not going to be able to cover my load. So it helps you increase your savings. When it comes to inverters, your standard warranty is 10 years, but you will see 10 to 15 years, and some brands you can pay additional to get extra warranties as well. But once again, look for Australian support, local service network, and established manufacturers. All the brands that I've mentioned in this slide will tick all those boxes. Next to consider is switchboards. Do you need a switchboard upgrade for solar? More importantly, this really comes into batteries. So when we have a look on this side here, this is an older switchboard and I still see a lot of them. You'll see ceramic fuses, there's no safety protection and limited space, and that will not meet today's standards. This is more what we call a standard upgraded safety switchboard. So if you were doing solar only, you will need between, this is for a single phase property, you'll need between 1 and 3 spare poles. So these are these little ones here. You'll see here, there's none there. So that would need a switchboard upgrade. If you are requiring a switchboard upgrade, my top tip here is I quite often see people that have had a switchboard upgrade for maybe they've changed their heating and cooling, or they've added a spa or a pool, and they've had to do a switchboard upgrade, but there's no spare poles if they do any future work. So that means they've got to pay for another switchboard upgrade. So whenever you have a switchboard upgrade, top tip, make sure you're telling your electrician, please allow for future proofing, and I want spare poles within the switchboard. So that might be down here. They may have more spaces for any future work. So safety first, there are legal requirements within Victoria to make sure that your switchboard is compliant. Not every home needs an upgrade, but it's important to ask that question and make sure you're asking your retailer, does my switchboard meet current requirements? What upgrades are required? Can you outline that separately within my quote so I know what I'm paying for the switchboard? And are there any safety issues to be addressed as well? When it comes to batteries, there's a lot more involved with switchboard work, because if you're having whole home backup, for example, these circuit breakers will all need to be, every single circuit breaker will need to be either on a type A, RCD or RCBO breaker. Without getting too technical, sometimes you'll have a safety switch that backs up, say, 3 or 4 switches. When you have batteries and you're wanting all those switches backed up, every switch needs to have its own circuit breaker on each one for safety. So there can be quite a bit of work involved. If you're having a whole home backup, some people might have an additional $1,200 worth of work in their switchboard. So understand that and make sure you're getting that outlined within your proposal as well. Getting the most out of your solar system. I'm not going to run through too much of this because we've sort of done this. This is more for people that want the slides afterwards and a bit of a refresher. Use your system during the day. Remember load shifting. Don't use all your appliances at once. Try and use between 10 and 3. If you're at work and you're not at home, set timers. Most people have timers on dishwashers, washing machines, thermostats for electric heating and cooling. So those types of things, you can set timers to make sure even if you're not home, you're using your electricity during the day. Just remember, once the sun goes down, if you don't have a battery, any electricity you're using outside of solar production hours, or if solar hasn't produced during the day, you're drawing from the grid and paying for. So the bigger the savings, the more electricity you use during the day. Quickly with rebates, you can jump onto the Solar Victoria site and learn more about rebates available. But there's 2 criteria to be eligible for the Solar Victoria rebate. Whoever's a property owner, their joint taxable income needs to be under 150,000. This has recently reduced from 210,000. And your property needs to be valued under $3 million. There are exemptions for Solstice Energy customers. And then there's the federal government rebate, which is called STCs. A quick breakdown of this. I've just given you 3 system sizes and examples. Different providers trade STCs through different companies, and that STC rate can change, but the number of STCs always remains the same. So if you've got 4 different quotes and they're all quoted you on a 6.58 kilowatt solar system, it will always say 45 STCs because they can't change that. The average price we see for STCs is $37, so that will just give you an example. A 6.58 kilowatt system will give you $1,665 rebate from the federal government. A 10.34 gives you 71 STCs, so that will give you $2,627. A solar Victoria, I'll mention, this is not means tested. It's automatic. Your retailer will claim it on your behalf. So you don't have to pay it, then claim and get it back. The Victorian government rebate is not automatic. It's means tested and it's via application. The 2 criteria, as I mentioned earlier, jump onto their website and it'll break down how you go through that, or make sure you've discussed with your retailer exactly what's required and whether you meet that criteria. There's a $1,400 rebate. Doesn't matter what size your system is. It's a $1,400 rebate, and your interest-free loan is also $1,400. The interest-free loan is 100% interest-free. I always say if you go buy something from a big retailer that advertises interest-free, there's generally no such thing because they'll have admin fees, account keeping fees, paper processing fees, and that's how they make their margin. The Victorian government has no additional charges whatsoever. It's 100% interest-free, and it's a maximum of $1,400. But make sure you jump onto the Solar Victoria site, savingenergy.gov.au. It's a great site that will break down everything for you and give you lots of downloadable brochures, books, and all your criteria and steps that you need to follow. Okay, take a breath and let's see how we're going. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast. As I said, we've got so much to cover and we've only got about 10 minutes left before we open up to questions. So let's run through batteries as quickly as I can. What to think about when planning to get a battery. First of all, what are your energy goals? Are you putting in batteries to reduce your electricity bills, which is normally number 1 for people I speak to? You want to store your excess solar and use it outside of solar production hours. Some people will want backup power. Not everybody wants blackout protection. So there's different types of backup with a battery. The simplest way to explain it, Number one, whole home backup. The power goes out, everything in your home is backed up. Number two is generally classed as essential services or certain circuit backups. The reason I don't like it as much as essential services, because people will say, well, I want my fridge backed up. And sometimes that can't be backed up depending on what circuit your fridge is on. A general, if you don't have whole home backup, might be lights and power, a certain power point and certain lights that'll work during a power outage. So you might need to run an extension lead from your fridge to a power point that's plugged in if your fridge can't be on a backup circuit. Now I'm not going to get too technical on that, discuss that with your suppliers, but that's going to come down to your main circuit, your type of battery, your size of your inverter, and what can actually be backed up. Most batteries will back up 50 to 63 amps, depending on the size of the inverter. So make sure you're discussing those things with your retailer as well. A lot of people are looking for energy independent. They want to rely less from the grid and want to be more independent from the grid. Now, solar and batteries can definitely do that for you. When I am sizing a system for customers, I am sizing from around generally from September to April. Once we hit May, June, July, August, just note that most people do not have enough excess solar to charge a battery. And that's because we don't have enough solar production. Even if they put a large size solar system in, the likelihood of them covering their usage and being able to charge a battery as well is generally lower, especially now that we've got more electric homes. So that's where you'll need to consider different plans. So looking at your electricity provider, seeing whether they've got the 3 hours of free power where you can charge your battery, and how much you can charge your battery in that 3 hours of free power is going to come down to your battery brand, your charge rate, and also how much load you've got in the house. So if you've only got a 32 amp main switch and you're drawing 20 amp, you're not going to be able to fill a 32 kilowatt hour battery in that time frame. So make sure you're discussing those things with your retailer as well, is what your battery is capable of doing. I do see a lot of batteries sold and people don't understand that they don't have grid protection, or they don't have backup, or they can't charge their battery from the grid to fill their battery, and they don't understand the differences. So I think that's really important for you to understand, and make sure you're discussing that with a retailer. The other thing is your battery size. That's in kilowatt hours and its usable capacity. If I talk about the most common size batteries, it's generally a 15 or 16 kilowatt hour battery, a 24 to 27 kilowatt hour battery, and around a 32 kilowatt hour battery. In the last 2 years, they're the main sizes that I've sold. And that's due to the rebates available. Before that, you were selling around a 10 to 13 kilowatt hour battery, but you do only get the rebate once on a battery. So most people will maximize what they can and oversize for what they need. There's batteries that are stackable. So batteries, the first 3 batteries here all come in a modular setup, where the Franklin is an all-in-one. So make sure you're understanding that as well, and what your capacity is within your battery and your usable capacity. Then you want to understand your upfront costs versus long-term savings. It's not unknown for me to have a customer ring in and be keen to put a battery in, for me to do their analysis and then say, okay, if you want to do it for safety and security reasons, but if your number one reason is to reduce your electricity bill, based on your last 12 months of data, it's going to take you 13 to 15 years to pay your battery back for your upfront cost after all the rebates. And they may not want to wait that long. They may not be going to be in the house for that long. They want to see a bigger return on investment. So understand whether a battery is actually right for you, and understand the cost benefits in it as well. I think that's probably about all there. Choose a reputable brand with a good warranty. On warranties, please make sure most batteries will have a 10 or 12-year warranty. And then they'll be warranted to the percentage, like your panels had a degradation. Your batteries will only perform at a certain percentage after year 10 or 12, and that's generally 70 to 80%. Franklin has the highest. The other three there, even though there's more batteries, I couldn't list every battery, but most batteries will be warranted to 70% after year 10. So that's why if your usage warrants around a 16 kilowatt hour battery, it's more beneficial to put a 24 kilowatt hour battery in, because in 10 years' time, that is only going to be a 16 kilowatt hour battery because it's going to lose that efficiency. Also, if you're using your battery every day and you're cycling it, then that can lessen your warranty. So oversize your battery so you've got a longer cycling will give you more lifespan within your battery as well. Another thing to understand in more detail and discuss with your suppliers, but also do your own research on the warranty itself. There's a little bugbear of mine in the industry. I can quite often see a brochure that says 10-year warranty, and when you read the fine print, it's only a 6-year on certain parts. So understand your warranty in more detail. All right, so blackout protection and storage. I've probably covered this a fair bit. Your backup power when you need it most, whether you want whole home versus essential loads, and then looking at your storage. How much storage do you want? How much are you trying to cover? So when we looked at I'm going to go back to Power Core Manage My Energy is your number one thing that you should understand. If we use the example that we've been using, if you use 30 kilowatt hours a day and your solar production hours is going to cover it, then you might only be using 10 kilowatts outside of solar production hours. So, okay, a 10 kilowatt hour battery, for example. But then your peak periods, you might be using 30 kilowatts outside of solar production hours on those peak days. How much do you want to cover? And if you've got 46-degree days and the power goes out, how long do you want to keep your air conditioner running for? That's how you should be sizing your battery. If there is a power outage, what do you want to keep running for how long will help you decide what size battery to go with. All right, how solar and batteries work. I'm going to sort of skip this one and go to the next one. And I'm going to give you, if you already have solar and if you don't have solar, just due to the time frames we've got. If you already have solar, your solar will generate and cover your house load first. Then any excess solar will go to your battery and it'll store it to use outside of solar production hours, or for example, in winter when it's a cold, rainy day and you've got no solar production during the day. Then once you've used your usable storage within the battery, then you will draw from the grid. So that's where you need to understand, review your daily exports. If you already have solar, how much are you going to be able to charge your battery from the exports you already have? If you're only exporting 5 kilowatts of solar and you put a 24 kilowatt hour battery in, then how are you going to charge the battery? Because you don't have enough excess solar to charge the battery. This is a really important one for people to understand, because it's probably about, I say I have so many customers come to me and they've got quotes on batteries, but they're never going to be able to charge that battery. So understand how you're going to be able to charge the battery. If you don't have enough solar to charge the battery, then understand you can charge it from the grid, but just understand the return on investment and what options are available. Some people may just want to cover their peak demand charge. So if you've got an off-peak and a peak demand charge, then that peak demand charge between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., that's where they're paying the most for electricity. Then some people go, Leah, all I want to cover is that peak demand charge. So I'm happy to pay less and just cover that. So understand what that means for you. If you don't have solar, then you've got to consider your solar size. You've got to size your solar to cover your excess that you want to charge a battery. So if you just put a smaller solar system in, are you going to have enough excess to charge a battery? Again, go to Power Core Manage My Energy. I know I keep saying this, but register with it, understand it, and understand your usage during the day. Then you're going to size your solar system to cover your daytime usage. I've put here October to April. You want to cover what you can with your solar for your daytime usage. So I'm going to use the 30 kilowatt hours because it's a simple one for people to remember. Let's just say you use 30 kilowatt hours over 24 hours and you use 20 kilowatts during solar production hours and 30 kilowatts outside of solar production hours. Then you're going to want around 40 kilowatt hours during the day, during solar production hours produced. So you've got enough to cover your daytime load, but then enough to charge your battery as well. The reason I'm saying October to April, because once again, once we hit May, June, July, August, even September for some, you won't have enough solar to fully charge your battery, especially for an all-electric home. What else to consider? Don't forget your backup needs, your future proofing, and your usable capacity. They're the things you should be looking at. Nearly last, battery location considerations. So where should a battery be installed? First of all, it's knowing your clearances and what's suitable to your home. I would say, look, probably a large percentage that we've installed are inside your lock-up garage, but that's not always the case or viable. So if you are going on an outside wall, then knowing your clearances and what's available. Number one, in Victoria, it won't pass inspection if it's on a west or north-facing wall without adequate shade protection. It lowers your battery lifespan, shouldn't be in direct sunlight, and should be protected from the elements as well. If you just think when you've got a car, your car can be outside a garage and it's going to still, you can still drive your car, it's still going to work, but it's going to deteriorate over time. Your paint and your general wear and tear on the car goes down. Think of that for your battery as well. The more you can protect it, the more lifespan you're going to get out of your battery. So if you're going on an outside wall, some can be wall mounted, some can be ground mounted. If it's ground mounted, it will need to be on a level ground. If you don't have a concrete slab, some can just be mounted on pavers, and your installer can normally quote you on all that as well. So make sure you're discussing those additional costs. You can have an awning put over it at the time of installation as well. So all those things can be included. Clearances, this is just your average. You need 900 millimeters above your battery and 600 millimeters either side. So if you're going within a lock-up garage, for example, and you've got doors or windows, you've got certain clearances you need to legally abide by. If you're going on an outside wall, and let's just say it's on a south-facing wall, and you've got a gas meter or a hot water pump or a split system unit, you'll have clearances that need to be abided by any of those. And then the height of your batteries as well, depending how many you've got in the stack. But your installer will go over all that with you. It's important that you're having a look at those things as well and knowing what's legally required for your battery install. It's regulations and safety. Other things will be cabling. So other costs to consider will be your cable run. If you're going in a lock-up garage and your main switchboard's on the other side of the wall, then they're only going up through the roof and over to the other side. If your main switchboard and distribution box is on a north-facing wall and your garage is 30 meters away, you could have 30 meters of cabling. So they're different things you've got to consider for your battery location. Also, if you've got a weatherboard home, you will need a cement-proof fire sheeting to go behind for safety and legislations as well. So just make sure all that is included in your original quote and you get no surprises on the day of any additional costs. STCs for batteries, the biggest one is your battery rebates. They have changed dramatically since they first come out. and they change every 6 months. So currently, I've just given you rates for as they are today, and these are for batteries installed, inspected, and STCs claimed before they change again on the 1st of January 2027. Just note, battery STCs change twice a year. 1st of January, 1st of July are key dates to know. So size limits is between 5 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours, and there's a tiered calculation. It's based on usable capacity, and your STC, if you install, STC stands for Small Trading Certificate. It's a federal government incentive. If you install up to 14 kilowatt hours, you get 100% of the rebate amount. If you install over 14 kilowatt hour battery, you'll get 60% for 14 to 28 kilowatt hours and 15% above 28 kilowatt hours. It can be a little bit confusing for people, but if you installed, for example, a 24 kilowatt hour battery, because that is probably the most common size I see installed, you'll get 100% for the 14 up to 14 kilowatt hours. And then the 14 to the 24, you'll get 60%. I think that's all I need to run through there. I've sort of run through what STCs are, so we've gone through there. Let's give you some average prices, I think is what people will want to know. How much are STCs worth? I'm just going to give you some basics. 15 kilowatt hour battery, $3,663. A 24 kilowatt hour battery is going to be about $5,000, and a 32 kilowatt hour battery about $5,700. This is the STCs here. Once again, your STCs won't change the amount of STCs, but what the company that quotes you, what they gain for STCs can change because they all are traded through different trading houses. So even though $37 is here, it doesn't mean that everyone gets $37. Some companies might be as low as 35 and some companies might be as high. I haven't seen over 38 for a long time, but you may see a slight variance. Don't worry if you do go, oh, this company's only offered me this much STCs and another company's offered me higher. You just want to look at your total out-of-pocket price because that's the most important thing. Whether the STCs are different, it's your total out-of-pocket price. Okay, I think that's about all because I think we need to allow some time for question time. And I know I've nearly there on timing. So do we have any questions I can answer?
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat that we might just run through. Karen asked, with future needs, how does updating the electric hot water system to a more efficient one fit into planning?
Great question. Depending on what you're going to be doing and what sort, a heat pump is the most common when you're changing from a gas hot water or a solar panel hot water. I would say a heat pump is now the most cost effective and efficient. Depending on the size and style heat pump, most of them use up to about 5 kilowatt hours a day. It's actually a very low usage, so it doesn't have a huge impact when you're sizing solar and batteries.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And Sheena asked, on very hot days, can you spray water on your panels to cool them down to improve, I guess, the ability that they're working?
Not recommended, not something I've heard of or ever been asked before. So that's a great question. But no, I honestly don't know whether it increases the efficiency, but not something I've heard of in the industry in my 8 years.
Yeah. And can you see any hail damage on the panel, or do you need to check the panel's output to identify it?
Definitely check your output. And that's why I say advanced monitoring is really important because you'll be able to see what the system produces and whether it's dropping in production. And that's not just hail damage. You may have a panel that's faulty and goes out. You may have a wiring that goes out, or you may just need to clean your panels if your production's dropping. Now, obviously, you can't do that for times of year. but any proposal that you receive from any provider will give you an estimated production. So, for example, your system will say, I've got a 10.34 kilowatt solar system and it's estimated to produce 41 kilowatt hours on average per day in whatever month. So you'll be able to see what your system's producing for that month and whether it is around the average. There's generally not more than a 10% variance. Some weather conditions can impact it, but that's how you'll know whether your system's performing or not. And I'll probably say they're a top one. If you're not checking your monitoring or you don't have advanced monitoring, PowerCore Manage My Energy is a free site that you'll be able to see that as well. I've had customers ring and go, oh my goodness, I've just got a $1,200 electricity bill. I had no idea that my inverter had stopped working and I didn't realize until I got a bill. So it's really important to monitor your system so you avoid that happening.
Yeah, PowerCore My Energy Portal sounds like it's a really handy tool.
It's great.
Soph asked, do you have any advice on vehicle to home instead of solar battery? We have had a webinar recently on EV, which covered vehicle to home. Do you know anything about that, Leah?
I'd probably say go back to that one because it's an interesting one in the market where everyone's expecting that their vehicle battery will be able to back up their home. And that's really not the case at this stage. And then it's going to come down to your warranty in the battery of the car and what they're going to warrant as well. So it's a big grey area, to be honest, but I would advise if you've had a specialist in that area, go back to that webinar.
Yeah, great. And that webinar will be available shortly on the Greater Bendigo Climate Collaboration YouTube page. Joe asked, do appliances need to be turned off at the power point when not in use to reduce power draw?
It does reduce it, and that's a great question. You can jump onto Energy Compare and sites that will tell you. Solar Victoria site, even though also has top tips of how to reduce your electricity and how much savings are. But if anything's on standby, although it's low, it does have a slight draw. So yes, if you turn things off at the power points, you will save, but it is a minimal save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, reducing that baseline kind of
Correct.
load. And can you recommend a good source of data for new technology? So Joe was saying that they've read about solar roof tiles and solar windows, but the data seems sketchy. So do you have any advice where to go to for more info on those sorts of things?
Look, when I went to the last All Energy Expo, which for those that don't know is the largest expo, we did see tiles with solar panel tiles, but I have not seen them in the market to date. But yes, there is technology that's out there. The cost is what prohibited most people from doing it. But I would just be doing a Google search and going on and checking those types of things. If you're an AI person, jump onto AI as well and get some more details there. Don't rely on AI to give you 100% details, but when it comes to, I know it says Leah Midland Solar. I've worked for 3 different solar companies in Bendigo over the last 8 years. There's been no one that in Bendigo that's actually offering those solutions, or even in the Greater Bendigo region that has been offering those solutions, more because it's more of a new technology that hasn't come out yet or proven. And cost effectiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. So a bit of a development space, I guess.
Yes.
And then Kevin asked, how often should panels be cleaned?
Yeah, great question. Please check your warranty on this because there's a difference between warranty and what's recommended. So Solar Victoria, once again, should be a go-to because that's your government body that's giving you all those details. That they have a downloadable form on there as well. And they say once every 12 months is advisable. I also say have a look at your monitoring, and I also say check your warranty to make sure that you're keeping your warranty up to date. I also have full disclosure. I have solar panels on my roof and I've cleaned them once in 5 years. If you've got a good angle on your roof and general, if you're not in a dusty area, if you've got no tree sap or anything coming onto your panels and you're watching your production, then the rain will get the general dust off your panels itself. And if you've got your advanced monitoring, or if you're looking at Power Core Manage My Energy, then if you're not losing production, then there's no need to actually wash them. If you start losing production, then it's time to maybe give them a maintenance check. But I say once every 5 years, you should have someone maybe come out and do a general check and service on your system for you. Is a really good practice to get in.
And the people to do that kind of service, is that the people who installed the panels, or are there other people you can ask?
There's definitely other people you can ask, 100%. If you're just doing a service check and not cleaning, there's not a lot of solar providers that clean panels, but they do the service check. So they can come out and check your inverter and check your wiring and check your performance and give you a report on it. A lot of people want that when they're buying a home that already has solar on it. Because it's becoming more common now that they want to check, is that solar system working? How do I need any upgrades once I've moved into the home? So you definitely have your retailers that will do that for you. If you're wanting panel cleaning, I think one of the most common ones in Bendigo is go.bendigo.vic.
Yeah. All right. Great. We have gone a bit over time, but is there a final question from anyone in the room who's still online? Sounds like potentially not, which is totally fine. Yes, so this has been recorded. Well, firstly, sorry, I'd like to say thanks to Leah for the presentation today. It was very detailed, very informative. Thank you so much. But yes, this has been recorded. It'll be available shortly on the Greater Bendigo Climate Collaboration YouTube page, which I will send a link to in the feedback email. So you'll have access to that. If you're able to provide us with some feedback, we'd really appreciate it, because we want to improve our service and make sure it's the best it can possibly be. So I'd love it if you could all fill out that survey for us. But yes, thanks so much to Leah, and thanks so much for everyone for coming along today. Yeah, we'll see you all soon.
Thanks so much, everybody.